Yo, I want to chill right now.
You're disrespecting me in a public forum right now. You realize that?
Yeah.
Okay.
I want that to be the goal of the podcast, for somebody to let go of their worries in the world and listen to us.
This is my new look, Daddy David. Daddy David.
Born to procreate. Born to procreate. Yeah, that better make it in the intro.
Nah, probably not.
What's going on, beautiful people? Welcome to episode 75 of the Unboxing Life podcast.
Eat my eat.
We are here doing an anime box review on our discussion on Parasyte, and I'm joined by my friends. I'm firstly joined by Shinichi.
Yes, sir. Yes,
Oh,
sir.
yeah.
Dude, every time Miki says Shinichi was just absolute life for me, so.
They
That's
do
true.
say
Excited to
his
talk about it.
they do say his name mad dramatic a lot of the time. It's
And
good.
they say it 1,000 times in this show.
That is true.
That is true. I'm also joined by a fellow Parasyte, CB the Leech.
His CB the Leech was good, dude. I'm sucking your blood. I'm making sure you're getting. I don't even know where I'm going with this. I'm gonna leave it off to the next person.
Just move on.
David
All
said
right.
it better than I could. We're done.
And I'm also here with my right hand is my best friend.
Dang.
What's up,
So,
guys?
you're gonna have some explaining to do with this one.
It's just about the show Parasyte.
Yeah, sure. I'm sure.
Speaking of the show Parasyte, spoilers ahead for the whole show. We're discussing it. I don't think we mentioned that on our last anime box, but it was Rent a Girlfriend, so it's fine. But yeah.
Also, if you are listening on Apple Podcasts and you care to give us a review, we will read it live on air. So please do us a favor and rate it however you feel. Give us a 5, give us a 1. Tell us that we suck dick. It's fine. Just give us something.
A particularly glowing YouTube comment as well if you're on Android or can't access
Very
Apple
true.
Podcasts for sure.
Yeah,
Very true.
and the man who introduced us all is next to Amo.
We are all
Oh.
next to Amo in the Zoom.
That is true. We are
Right,
all
guys.
I
It is true. It
We're
is
distant
true.
physically, we're close mentally.
That's facts. It's true. I recommended this anime to my boys, and I'm curious to hear how everybody's feeling about it.
Dang.
But first,
Yeah.
Oh?
what comes before we review the anime, Alex?
Oh, we-
certainly you know. You've been
I
here
know
for
it. I know it. I know it.
Okay.
We talk about
I'll take traditions for 400.
the opening.
The opening!
The traditions, dickhead.
There's
Jesus
an established
Christ.
thing we do.
Jesus fuck.
Yeah, we only do it every episode. It's traditions, man.
Yes, I almost forgot to be honest.
I had a very mental lapse right there.
That's fine. That's fine. So who's
Is-
going first? My G?
We're on a weird recording schedule. It's you're to be forgiven for that for sure.
Hmm.
I've had a deficit of factual information in my life as of late, so I would like to hear a fact.
Dang.
All right.
Oh, that's me. Am I the fact man? Am I the fact boy
Go for it.
on the
fact
podcast?
You
Well,
are
my
in fact
facts.
the fact man.
Off the top of my head, I'm definitely not reading this off of Calibri 16-point font, Microsoft Word printed document. Is that certain city birds have learned to line their nests with smoked cigarette butts in order to ward off, keyword, parasites,
Oh.
as burnt nicotine evidently works as an insecticide to ward off mites, lice, and fleas.
Dang.
And so the study they did this in, they just like cut cigarette butts off of like unsmoked cigarettes and like used those and like baited birds into using those as like nest lining, and then had like actual smoked cigarette butts, like so like the entire thing had been smoked through. And so then naturally what happens when you smoke a cigarette is that the smoke gets pulled through the entire thing up to the end to your mouth. And so the nicotine has passed through the cigarette butt the entire time. And so they found that ones that had been smoked, and so the butt was more soaked in nicotine, were far more effective and far more used than ones that were just cut off and given to the birds, basically. So the more nicotine the cigarette butt had, the more likely and often they used it as nesting material.
Dang.
Interesting
Wow.
stuff.
That is
In my
interesting.
opinion.
Crazy.
That's very interesting. Wow. Interesting, is it?
All right, you
Wow.
killed that. I
You
want to hear
killed
the.
that.
I want to
That's
hear
how I
the
do.
track.
All right, the track of the week
Give me it.
is Next to You. Funnily enough, I was playing this before.
I hate this shit.
I love that. I love that. I love that. I'm
Hate
fully
it.
against you. I love that
when
shit.
David does the anime tracks, man.
But it's
Nah.
not the. I mean, it's not the
Dude,
opening.
they're
so,
good, bro.
It's the
They're
closing,
good.
isn't it?
Uh-huh.
No,
I mean,
So
especially
what is this from?
this is like just they play it all the time in the show. Like
Yeah,
when
we were
something's
playing it pre-pod.
going on. Yeah, Alex is playing this.
I know that.
Yeah,
Put me asleep.
I mean, yeah,
This-
it's very lullaby sounding. Yeah, which is they use it very effectively in the show as like a very calming thing, but sometimes there's conflict, sometimes there's, that's not the other thing. David's going to say the rest.
Yeah, I mean, I pretty much just picked it because, I mean, I don't know if I love it that much on its own, but it reminds me of the show very much when I hear it. This is like, I went back and listened to this track because I finished the show like, I don't know, a week and a half ago or something. And so like, I just went back and listened to it and I instantly got in the vibe of the show. And I mean, people know about it. It has like 9 million views on YouTube. So
Dang, really? God damn.
yeah, something crazy like that. So if you want
I'm
to,
surprised.
if you're a Parasyte fan, you want to just like get back in that mindset, I feel like you put this on and you can just
Mhm.
vibe out. Parasyte vibes.
Yep, this is probably the most well-known song on this Parasyte soundtrack.
Mm.
It's just a vibe, man. I know Cameron was saying it's calming, but for me, it's almost sentimental in a way. It just has that sound where all these emotions, and like David said, it ties into the show, and it brings that up. So when I heard it, I knew this was a potential track of David's. I just knew hearing it is hard.
Yeah.
And who was on the studio is what I want to know.
Who was in the studio?
Who was in the studio? Yes, not on.
Yeah, who was standing on top of the studio?
There were some birds on the
Could be an
studio.
interesting
Jeez.
smoking cigarettes, yeah.
Yeah.
Jeez. Well,
That
I'm
is what we call a callback.
Indeed.
to 2 minutes
To
ago.
3 minutes ago, yeah.
That is what we call in the business a callback. Yes.
Jesus.
All right. I'm gonna go with I'm gonna take the joke because I don't have a Parasite related joke. Every Parasite joke I looked up had something along the lines of, "I didn't like it, and then it grew on me," and I'm like, no, every freaking joke. So
Excellent.
You ain't
So
slick. You sit. You. You got two. You got two jokes in this episode. You fucker.
True. True.
I got some inside knowledge on the struggle of finding good jokes.
Memeing
Yeah.
on the shit joke is a joke in and of itself.
Yeah, there you go.
I guess so, but I found
Love it.
I found an unrelated joke that made me laugh from the Reddit user Conscious Evolution. So shout out to them.
Dang,
Dang.
that's kind of Parasite related.
There you go. True.
That's kind of crazy.
Dang.
And they posed the question, what do you call two monkeys who share an Amazon account?
Oh God, here we go.
The heck?
I don't know, man.
What? Monkey see, monkey do.
That is the most obscure question
That's
on the
that's
planet.
so insane.
Is it just
All
a
right.
monkey species? What?
Prime mates.
Why did I not think of that? Nice.
That might have been the most obvious one so far.
I
Except
guess so.
God damn.
we didn't get it. Now that is tough.
Yeah, we definitely didn't get it. No, that's good. I appreciate that one.
Yeah,
Cool.
it's a good one. Yeah.
Yep, so last
Jeffrey
but not
Bezos.
least.
Jeffrey Bezos, who was stepping down later this year.
wow.
Dang.
Well, stepping down is a relative term.
I actually give a fat frick. Moving on to The quote.
Oh, my boy Spicy Mayo.
The
You want the
quote.
quote? All right.
Yeah, I want it.
All right. So I couldn't figure
see
out
it.
the translation, or like I couldn't find a clip of him saying this in the show, but he says it a couple times in the first like 6 episodes. And then I ended up texting you it, Alex, because it was the funniest shit in the world to me. But I can't. I wanted to speak it in Japanese like I did for Love is War, but I can't. So I'm just gonna say it in dub. So it just goes like this. Shinichi. That is cold.
Oh, God.
Oh, when he fucking
Yo, every time he washes his hands, bro, yo, Shinichi. That's cold. And I'm obviously I watched it in sub, so he's not saying that is cold, but he says that's cold in Japanese. It's the funniest
Dang.
fucking shit in the world. So watch the show.
That was funny.
that shit was mad funny every time it happened.
Yeah.
Because it was like it was so deadpan. It was
It was one of those reoccurring jokes that just never got old to me.
Yeah.
And it only happened like 4 times,
Yeah.
and then they stopped,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
which I was totally fine with. But
Yeah, my thing.
yeah, no, it definitely made me smile every time I saw it.
No, it was
Yeah.
good. That was good. That definitely rolls us into the show.
The
more
shit
or less.
opening.
The
Oh
opening.
boy.
You know
Really,
what?
you think it's shit?
Oh, I fucking hate
But
this song. This
but
is
Trevor, they
awful.
scream.
Wow, that's not a prerequisite to being good, my guy.
Trevor, you like all screaming.
Wow, no, I don't. And I also don't like when they sing through autotune. It fucking annoys the shit out of me. It's like an awful B-side of like Attack Attack or fucking Eskimo Cowboy or any of those fucking awful bands from 2008. It's awful. This is like a worse band of crossfaith. I hate this.
Yeah, autotune feels like a weird word for that because if it was straight up autotune, it would be better. But it's just like distortion.
But
and
it's autotune, but they're just singing through it. It's how Little Baby does it, but he raps through it, so it doesn't sound as awful because it's not as forced. He's not actually belting notes. This is ridiculous. I hate this delivery.
Yeah,
this is so 2008 Warped Tour. It hurts me.
Given how egregiously easy it is to skip an intro on Netflix, which is the platform I watch this on, I'm not going to spend too much time ripping on it, but it literally was so incredibly easy to skip this intro. It does absolutely nothing for me. I fully dislike what Trevor described as autotune, but the tuning of like the techno weird shit, and it's just like doesn't hit the ear right, and then they start screaming, and I'm like, no, thank you.
And the screaming is so like I like electronic core bands just don't know how to do this at all. It's so disjointed from the rest of the instrumental, and it's just muddy mix all the time. It's like it's made in a $15 studio. It's just awful.
Yeah.
It's awful all around. This entire song is trash.
The only additional thing I'll say is it just doesn't.
David laughing like a fuck.
It doesn't even feel right for the show.
No,
like, the
not
show
at
is
all.
intense. The show is bloody. The show is all that stuff. And so they just like decided to go with an intense like techno and then screaming track, but it's like.
And it makes
just didn't
sense.
work
It
out at
kind of
all.
makes sense,
I don't
like
know.
because of it kind of makes sense with the aggression, and it also makes sense because they have like interlaying dubstep like instrumentals for their soundtrack, which work phenomenally.
Those
by the way,
do,
but
yes. We'll definitely cover that, I think, in more detail as we talk about the show. Yeah.
They're so disjointed from the actual intro. It's like they recorded this in 2006, and then they're like, oh, maybe we can just slap this on here. Like maybe we have really low budget for our music, so let's just try and skate by with this. And I'm not letting you skate by with this. This is trash.
That was the weird thing, was how much I liked the audio, like how much I liked the music for the show, but I disliked the intro, which feels like it should be a layup if the music for the show is that good. But,
Yeah,
I don't know.
the intro's trash.
I don't know. That's
How do you guys feel
that's
about
all
it?
I'm gonna say. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I don't think there's much for me to say that you guys haven't already said. I don't care for it at all. Netflix makes it incredibly easy, as Cameron was saying, to just skip it and watching a few episodes at a time. I'm skipping it every day of the week.
Yeah,
even
I
on
watched it one.
Thursdays.
I heard it one time. I was like, I'm never doing this again. Never.
Yeah, I guess I'm the only one who thinks it's all right. I don't love it, but I think it's okay, and I think it fits the show decently. And I watched it a few times, but mostly I skipped it. But I'm not really gonna die on the hill of defending it either. But
Yeah, you can't.
I don't think it's bad.
Yeah. I have
Plus
no use for
the intro animation itself doesn't really do a whole lot for me either. so
exactly. Yeah. It's.
I can't even tell you anything that happens. We just watched it like 20 minutes ago.
Yeah.
So
Dang.
just a forgettable OP in general.
There's that.
But
Yeah.
the outro is actually pretty catchy and actually kind of soulful. I actually enjoy the outro a lot.
Hmm.
Dang.
I adore the moments when they incorporate outros into the actual anime. So
Yeah,
there's times in it.
sometimes it frustrates me because I'm just like, come on, end the episode. I want to go to the next episode. But
Yeah,
I know what you mean.
yeah.
I disagree with you there, Trev. But I mean, it can be conditional. But in what I think you're talking about, I'll disagree. But Alex was gonna say something.
No, just that, like Trevor said, very soulful. I was saying that the way they don't incorporate it too much into what's happening in the animation, but you'll have those occasional episodes where it
Just like with every other
leads
anime.
into it. Yeah, like in every other anime, and I'm a sucker for it, honestly. Just
Yeah.
because it gets you more music. I was telling to Trevor earlier. Music is just it's life because it carries all these emotions and all these feelings and all these vibes in music and when you get it in anime, it complements it so well.
Yeah, it's a very important piece for sure. Yeah.
Definitely. Yeah.
Yeah.
In
Yeah,
entertainment.
he was saying that's why he would primarily watch anime over wanting to read manga because there's no sound, but there's no music that accompanies said work, so it doesn't hit nearly as hard as it would if you're watching an anime.
Yeah, and in entertainment in general, I mean, we can have this conversation to, we could cover an entire fucking episode if we did our research on music and entertainment. But you have like Star Wars, Indiana Jones, Superman, all these. I'm naming just John Williams tracks, but like all these things that are just like you hear that beat and you get filled with the emotion of the
Harry
thing
Potter.
that you were watching. Harry Potter, every iconic movie, TV franchise that has that like when shit goes down, this is the track that's playing. And that's what you feel. That makes you so it's a huge part of every show, movie, entertainment piece. So we'll talk about it every time.
Yeah,
Oh.
for sure.
Shit OP and a pretty great outro. So
I hate the
Yeah,
outro, honestly. I think the outro is really bad, and I don't think it fits the show at all. But
I think you have your outro and intro mixed up, honestly.
I'm not gonna say anything to David on that take. I have no use for the outro. I don't know. It's okay. But yet again, it was too easy to go to the next episode. Then that's maybe a failing on my part for not giving it a full chance as it maybe deserves.
I just like the notes that he hits.
I think that's definitely a fair take. I'm feeling how David's feeling on the intro. I'm not gonna die on the hill defending it. I like it. I enjoy it, but it's definitely not a top outro by any means.
No.
Yeah.
I think you'd be wrong to say that.
It's definitely a short hill to die on.
Yeah. Well, let's get into this.
It's definitely near sea level.
My boys, how we feeling, man? I need to know. I've been waiting.
All right, Alex, you've been waiting. Pick a person to give first impressions.
I pick you.
Yeah, just talk.
Yeah.
Bet.
This is a podcast, by the way.
So Ash Ketchum in this bitch. I choose you.
This is
dermatologists hate him.
I did write down that it's not like anything I've ever seen. That does stand true for certain aspects. It also doesn't for others.
Yeah.
The most central aspect of the show that I noticed that I like about shows that do this kind of a thing, which we reviewed one recently that I'm not going to spoil, but I may have just done, in terms of the enemy lies within the protagonist and is used to defeat the enemy, right? Where like the big baddie has some sort of relationship to the protagonist, and therefore, like, that's the protagonist.
I know exactly what show you're referring to.
Yeah, that's the protagonist's strength in defeating the enemy, and so that it's far from formulaic. I'm absolutely not gonna call it unoriginal because it is original in its own right. So it was very interesting. I liked the show's concept a lot. In general, I wish they explained a bit more, but honestly, maybe not in hindsight, because it kind of, the way the show flows definitely benefits from lack of explanation and just persistence of action, basically. So, you know, initial thoughts is that I like the show. I think the combat was great. I thought they were going to cop out pretty early with the whole, like, I can't detect their movements, but then they, like, move past that as soon as, like, episode 5 ended, and it's a 24-episode anime. So they moved past that a lot. Everything adapted. So it was dynamic. It developed. There's a lot of value. So that's what I'll say for now, and we'll go into it deeper later.
I will say that Parasyte was adapted in 2014 as an anime.
Yeah.
From the manga, which came out in the 80s.
Yeah, I saw that.
Really?
It's crazy.
That's cool.
Wow,
I didn't know that.
That's fucking fantastic information. Thank you for that.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, I saw that. That's pretty interesting. It must have been
Goodness.
Why do I think of Usher every time I hear "Yeah, man"?
I feel that.
Usher.
Usher. Yeah, man.
Yeah, man.
Now
Yeah,
we
it
back
must have
in
been
the
crazy.
mine. Got our
Oh,
pickaxe
God.
swinging from side to
Oh my
side,
God, bro.
side,
Alright.
side to side.
Cameron is no longer allowed on the Unboxing
Oh,
Light
man.
podcast.
More like
I think you're no longer allowed on the
I'm the
box. Like
true
that, 'cause
king.
all of us are
True.
vibing.
We're vibing out for sure. Minecraft version. Yeah, but yeah.
So anyway,
It's certainly. I think it's a pretty unique show in a lot of ways, like you said. I feel like there's some wasted potential for me, and that was one of my biggest takeaways. But I did like a lot of the concepts that they touch on and that kind of thing. But I don't know.
I'm with you. I think the show succeeds in a lot of ways, but I think the biggest factor for me falling flat was it didn't feel like it had a whole lot of personality outside of Migi. Like I couldn't tell you a damn name at all. Like I think the show is very bleak, and not in its theme, more so in its color palette, the way it's actually presented to the viewer. I don't know. I couldn't really like, and it's ironic. Like when you get into the actual show, he loses himself like over the course of the show because he has this parasite. So he becomes he goes from this worrisome, anxious person that has like, you know, he's always worrying about someone else, going to this completely cold, like wooden plank of a human being because he has this parasite in him. And I think the show suffers a lot because of it.
interesting. I think the show gains value from that.
I totally disagree. This show has like next to no personality for me.
I agree that it next to no personality. I think is a bit.
There's just like
extraneous,
a bit not even that,
dramatic.
but like the characters themselves look so similar to me. Like I couldn't tell you the difference between a lot of the characters. I was like really confused like halfway through. Like who the fuck is this? Why should I care? Like
I'm gonna agree with you there to a degree. In terms of like, you know, remembering names, like actually caring about characters. The show in and of itself does a thing in terms of killing off characters very immediately, where you're just like, oh, I should just never prepare myself to actually care about a character. Where you're like, apparently like pretty immediately. I mean, I'm talking in terms of 24 episodes. So like when 8 episodes in, we see, you know, a major character that matters to the protagonist die, like just get eviscerated or whatever. It makes you feel like, okay, I'll just never get attached to a character ever again. I felt that way to a degree. I think what I wanted to say about the bleakness, though, is that it does a fair amount for the narrative. Is that I think it does a good job of making you feel hopeless, of putting you in the protagonist's shoes, of like, this is a really, really fucked up situation and people keep dying and it's egregious and disgusting and there's a lot of blood in this show. And so that in terms of the bleakness, it does a fair amount for the storytelling rather than against it, I think.
Yeah. That's interesting. I was actually gonna ask about that, Trevor. Did anyone have any problem with like the gore? Or was it like
No, I
mess
thought
you
it
up
was.
at all?
I thought I was gonna have a little bit of a problem with them like transforming and like just the fact that they just like ribbon out and kind of like just it's a complete dismemberment of themselves. I think Cameron, you said the combat was great. I totally disagree. I think the flailing of the limbs was really fucking lame. Honestly, I really couldn't get past that. Every time they did that, I was like, all right, fam. Like it was like the Dragon Ball Z parry shit that just never ended for 30 seconds, and I'm just like.
It's lame when they only do that, but that's not the only thing they do. They do use
They did it for a lot of the Parasyte v Parasyte battles, and like the only times that it kind of broke through was at the very beginning when he kind of pinpoints the weak point, and like at the very end. But I don't know. I think the combat was like mad lackluster.
I feel like that's a vast oversimplification, but I'll let the.
I don't think so. So
that's fine.
Interesting.
Yeah, I think I value the show more on the threat of a parasite rather than the actual combat, such as the moment when there's a parasite in the school and none of the students can really do anything about it, and so everybody's kind of scurrying because they don't know what's around the corner, and then he comes around the corner and just slaughters a bunch of people. Those moments is where it's the most intense,
where it taps in and like it's in a horror aspect where you don't see something that happens on camera and then you see a whole hallway that's slaughtered with kids. Like that does more for me than actually seeing them in action.
Yeah,
because then it leaves it up to your imagination as to how they got slaughtered, which is fine with me.
I won't disagree with you there. I'm not like imagining how they got slaughtered, but I think in terms of like narrative, those sort of scenes are very, very effective. I'll agree with you. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
But no, the body horror aspect didn't really bother me, honestly.
Okay, well, that's good. Yeah,
which I was actually pretty proud of myself about that. The only thing that really bothered me, like visually, about the show was when they kept showing him. Excuse me, when he gets punctured by his quote unquote mom after she gets captured and kind of gets taken over, and she stabs him through the heart, and like after that he has that scar and he's like rubbing it and whatnot, and like I don't know what you call a phobia of having like a fear of heartbeats or the heart in general, but I have that. So whenever he's like touching himself like that, or when he's like when he's shirtless and he shows the hole inside his chest, it really bothered me. But that was like the only part of the show that fucked me up.
Interesting. I have that with like hearing heartbeats. Like I don't like to hear that sound. Yeah.
Whenever I'm laying with Rocio and I have my head on her chest, I have to move. I can't hear her heartbeat. It drives me insane. It's like nails on a chalkboard for me.
That's crazy because I feel the opposite.
Yeah,
I hate it. I mean that's partly why I never put my hand on my heart over the Pledge of Allegiance. Besides the fact that I never really believed in it, but.
Now we're on a whole different trail. But
I can. That's
interesting because I feel the opposite.
I didn't know anyone. Yeah, I can hear it from a distance or whatever, but like when they play that sound effect really loud or something, I'm like, oh god, it just wigs me out.
It bothers me in Dead by Daylight too, because like I just got that game and like when the killer's right next to you, it's just like doo 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 doo, and I'm just like, come on, man, like, why?
So Trevor, you're lying.
It's
okay. I forgive you if you'll come clean. I'm gonna give you this one chance to come clean. That
I'm not gonna come clean.
That the heartbeat is the only thing that bothered you in this anime. This saga that I'm about to reference started back when we covered Erased. How do you feel about the lips in this anime, Trevor?
They're fine.
Really? That's all I fucking get? I do that much setup and you're just going to say they're fine?
Well, when you set yourself up like that, you're kind of setting yourself up for failure.
I like, the fucking Parasyte looks so grotesque and the lips are so over-animated.
The lips are super Mr. Potato Head, for sure.
Okay. I massively expected you to have issue with them.
No. I had issue with the erase lips because they look like Kylie Jenner on steroids.
All right, I guess that's fair.
That's funny.
Not to shit on your anime, David, but
all right. Well, I'm gonna try to make.
We're shitting on Alex's anime right now.
Yo,
God.
I'm gonna
I'm
try.
joking.
Yo, I'm gonna try to make something out of that bit and just say let's transition this into how do we feel about the depictions and the grotesqueness of the parasites, especially Migi, just sauntering around his fucking apartment, but also when the heads separate and they become like these hollow objects. How do you guys feel about that?
I thought he was cute, man. Not gonna lie, I thought he was really
Yeah.
fucking adorable.
Really?
Like, the entire time, I thought
Yeah.
he was a female. I thought he was a female the whole time. I still felt like he was a female. Every time they kept referencing him as a man, I'm like, fam, he sounds like a woman. But no, I totally
Does it have-
actually
does he
really
have
dig
a-
his because what?
I mean, does he have a gender?
Yeah, I mean they feel
They
genderless
kept
to
referring
me.
to him as he. Yes.
I guess.
I guess. Yeah, I felt like a default to me. I was
Yeah, I
like,
mean,
oh,
they-
it's just some
I mean,
alien.
it's a limb. It's
It's-
yeah.
They just
It sounded like a
referred-
female.
They just referred to them based off of their hosts. The parasites
yeah.
themselves seem genderless based on the fact that
Mhm.
reproduction
Yeah.
is irrelevant to some degree. I'm still a little salty that we got no answer as to where they came from. It's just
Yeah,
like
that's a
That is true.
I mean, I'm cool with the whole leave it up to the imagination thing, but like I don't know. They made so much of a mystery out of it that it's like, can you give us a hint? Can you give us some sort of a this is
Meteorite
going
in
down
the
this
park.
path? Because they just drop from the sky in spores and then decide to invade humans, and then
Yeah.
all we get is like one of the Ryoko Tamura, whatever her name is like hypothesizing about like their nature, and we never get any real answer about that either. And so
Yeah.
that was a shortcoming for me. Whereas like, sure, leaving it up to the imagination is cool, I guess, but like if you're gonna do that much exposition on the nature of a thing, maybe at least come close to it, as opposed to just not bothering to have any sort of definitive answer at all.
Mhm.
Yeah, I thought they were setting that up too, and then they just don't
And
go
then they
into
just
it.
don't. Yeah.
Yeah, so
In hindsight, it kind of bothers me, but as I was watching the show, I didn't really think about it too much. I thought about it once or twice, and then I just kept watching the show, and I'm like, they're not really going to explain this. It's fine. It's not really pivotal to the story in any way.
Mhm.
yeah, I
And
thought
it'll
would've
probably
been-
add another 2 episodes of fat for no reason.
Yeah.
Of them just explaining things that don't matter in the end. So
Yeah.
I was fine with it.
I mean, maybe I'm biased. I was kind of waiting for it to be pivotal, basically.
Yeah,
I,
it definitely
I
didn't happen.
wanted, like 4 episodes from the finale or something like that to that be
No way.
to have that
Yeah,
be
no.
like some huge plot point, but it just never happened.
No, they just focused on what's his name,
Yeah.
Godo. Is that his name?
Godo, yeah.
Yeah, they
the-
just
the
focused
fi-
him
the
on him
final-
hella hard at the
The
end.
final boss of
the
Parasites.
final boss.
Yeah.
That's something interesting about this show too. Is it's like it presents this worldwide phenomenon that's like this crazy thing, like humanity's being invaded, and then
Yeah.
it'll go up to officials of the city and big politicians, but it also keeps it small scale. Kind of, it'll go back down and just be like,
Not kinda, it does.
It
Right,
goes up.
It's just like this local
Yeah.
police department that's like solving the case, and it's like mincemeat murders are happening around the entire country, but we're gonna
Yeah.
have this one this one fucking police department just handling this entire case. It's like, what?
Yeah, there definitely were weird inconsistencies like that.
Precinct.
One
That's
of
what I was going.
one of the things I could not get over was so I think it's around episode 10 where they talk about, they have that conference, like the officials have this conference with the scientists, and they're like, oh, how can we tell parasites from humans? And they have this whole thing about pulling out hair, and it's like, how fucking effective are Japanese psyops that it becomes a fad to pull out each other's hair as a fucking normal thing? It's just like, oh, for fun, we're gonna pull out each other's hair.
I thought that
with
was weird too,
absolutely
yeah.
no fucking reason behind it.
yeah, there was
Like,
no
we're
reason.
just gonna start like as far down as elementary schoolers are fucking ripping at each other's hair. Like, what is Like, what kind of
But-
pervasiveness does the Japanese military and like fucking everything have that they can somehow do some like low-key propaganda campaign that they don't even show us that convinces elementary schoolers to pull each other's hair out? What the
A
fuck
couple
is going
times
on there?
it literally leads to people's death. Like,
Right,
it's
like, right?
If you discover the fact that they're a parasite, they're going to kill you. Do not pull out someone's hair. This is ridiculous.
Like, 'cause the
you are
chick-
so stupid for doing that.
The chick like pulls out the guy's hair and she's like, haha,
And
it's so
she's
funny.
like, ha,
and then
ha.
it's like,
She literally says, ha ha, and then she looks at it and it's disintegrating, and he's like, your dinner now.
yeah, you're dinner now.
Yeah,
It was
that
like,
was such a weird
that shit was
plot point to
bizarre.
me.
It was so,
yeah, they don't explain
like, they
it,
just-
and then
they skim over it so fast, so fast.
it seems like they would skim over weird parts that you think would be a big deal. Like eventually, people are just like, "Oh, are you a monster?" It seems like people know about them, but they don't have
Without
some
knowing,
big moment.
it just
Right.
doesn't make any sense
Yeah.
at all. Yeah.
It's weird, but
I don't know. I don't know how much this bothered you too, but like the fact that they kept like every episode was like, oh, there's one near me. It like that dialogue point happened so often. Like it was almost like a GTA 5 narrator where they were telling you how close you were to the objective. It's like, oh, there's one near me. They're 300 meters away. It's like, do I have an Apple Watch that's like telling me how my heartbeat is? Like,
Trackify, baby.
yeah, basically,
Yeah, they wrote a weird line between having an overarching plot and having like a monster of the week kind of a formula. Where it was like every week there's a new parasite to deal with versus like there is this sort of overarching general like idealism where they eventually get into it about the whole like nature of parasites and how they're like population control for the humanity, and like, well, I'm sure we'll discuss
which
that
I
in
actually
depth
enjoyed
more
that theme.
later. That it was interesting, but I don't want to get too in depth about it during this conversation because I feel like I'm cutting it short. But yeah, it was just the formularity of it was weird because it felt like it jumped back and forth, and then maybe you can call that not formularity because then it just, if it jumps back and forth, then it's just not a formula. So it was weird to me. I didn't think about it too hard. I'm like, this is all in retrospect. This is all in hindsight of me saying like, oh, you know, thinking about it now, it was weird. But you know, I enjoyed it while I was watching it. Definitely, it feels like I'm being more critical of the show than I actually felt about it as I talk about it.
Well, yeah. On that note, I want to hear Alex. Like, what do you like a lot about the show, and why did you recommend it and stuff?
Definitely. Let's get to that.
I definitely want to talk about it. What adds a lot of value for me and why I really like the show is a lot of the philosophical progression in Migi and Shinichi's relationship throughout, because it kind of evolves. The whole theme is what it means, exploring what it means to be a human. That's essentially it starts with Migi not really understanding the concept of humanity and why Shinichi is so opposed to hurting other humans, whereas
Empathy, largely, yeah.
Right. You see Migi, who doesn't really have a problem killing others of his own kind because it means his survival. So it kind of explores.
Every time they brought that up, I laughed too, because they always had that back and forth debate about, you know, killing humans or whatnot. Like Migi's always on the side of pro survival, and Shinichi's just like, "Yo, what the fuck are you doing, man? Stop!" Like he's literally pulling on his fucking arm to tell him to stop.
In the first several episodes, and then pervasive throughout is the idea that Migi is for himself and nothing else, and he's only preserving Shinichi for that sake. So go ahead, Alex.
Not to cut you off.
It definitely gave me a lot to think about when I was watching it for the first time, and a key moment that really stuck with me is when Migi is on the computer and he's researching demons, and he says the closest thing I see to demons is humans. You know?
That's good.
That was
And
good
it's on the surface it seems humorous, but then when you think about it and you're like, his reasoning to him would make sense. And then the concept of because humans care about each other, and they care about, and they don't want to see each other get hurt, but we obviously consume other animals for our own benefit, and that's essentially what parasites are doing as their own existence. And so you see that relationship. You see characters like Ryoko, which is the lady that isn't really so hostile, but more intelligent in the sense of trying to figure out what is going on.
The one that ends up having the baby, right?
Right.
Yeah. The one that turns into, or the one that kills the mom.
There's a lot of solid one-liners in the show, one or two-liners, as it were. One that definitely stuck out to me was very early on. I think it's only episode 3, where they have a debate about self-sacrifice and things like that. And Migi says to Shinichi, I've just remembered humans are unusual animals who commit suicide. It's like, that like weirdly had never crossed my mind, is the idea that, we're the only living being who bothers to kill ourselves because of any sort of reason.
Yeah.
Is like, like suicide basically doesn't exist within the rest of life. Like every other form of life will basically protect itself over everything else. I mean, we have primates, which exhibit a sort of empathy that we do because we are primates. But large in part, we are the only people who will, kill ourselves just because of, arbitrary reasons, essentially.
Yeah, the emotional intelligence that we have obtained as a species.
Yes, and before we go beyond that, it always gets better. Talk to someone, go to therapy, all that good stuff. There is
41 minutes in. Yeah, this is a therapeutic session. Yes, please talk to people around you.
I never want to talk about suicide without saying to our listeners, there is a better future out there for you if you're feeling that way. So go. Yeah. There are people who care about you, even if you don't feel like that now. You'll find them. So go for that. So anyway, back to the episode.
I think that just goes to show the thought-provoking nature of some of the one-liners that the show presents.
Absolutely.
Because it wants you to think about that perspective, and it wants you to think about your own humanity, essentially. I think that's what really stands out to me.
Yeah, that was my favorite part of the show too. I would definitely say, which is great because I think they nail Migi and Shinichi's dynamic, and they're sort of like them and Ryoka Tamura, they're like kind of the main characters. I feel like they explore the themes through, like, obviously Shinichi and Migi, it's like, the lines start to get blurred between them when Migi has to like put himself into Shinichi, and Shinichi's more like a parasite now. And so there was a lot of interesting stuff that came out of that.
I really laughed out loud when fucking Shinichi threw the dog away.
Oh god, that's a dark. Yeah, that's
laughed out loud. Yeah.
Oh man, because he has a deadpan face. Because this is the part where he's just like, he's completely like 80% parasite, like 20% human. Barely knows how to feel anymore. Can't cry at anything. And he senses the fucking dog die in the street, and he takes it, and he's like, oh, maybe he's being empathetic. He just fucking throws it away in the trash can. I'm just like, what?
What made me laugh out loud, I'm gonna bring up in a minute, but I think Alex actually brought this anime to our attention just to challenge me directly because of the college lecture that goes on in the middle of this about altruism.
Oh dang! True.
Yeah,
yes,
I thought about our
altruism.
That is the reason
I theory episode.
That's definitely the only reason ever. Yeah, no, but so they have that lecture, which is interesting because obviously it's Ryoko Tamura who eventually ends up sacrificing herself for her human baby and all that good stuff.
By the way, how the fuck did she fertilize a human baby? Didn't she have sex with a parasite?
So only
How the fuck did that happen?
Only
It's still human anatomy.
Yeah, only the brains are controlled. So everything else is human anatomy. So sperm and eggs are still the exact same as they were.
And which is what she was testing because she wanted to determine if the child would come out human or a parasite.
Yeah,
And I
still,
will just say she absolutely got murked.
She did. She sure did.
Like,
she
held nothing back.
Before we go on to that, that's
shot like 100 times.
God damn.
Yo, she literally could have survived that if she wanted to. She didn't give a shit.
Yeah, for sure.
She could have.
She did not get murked.
And
I can't believe that they aired that fucking park out like that. That was ridiculous, by the way. I fucking hated that scene. They just kept shooting. It was the most awkward shit in the world to watch. It was like boom, 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 and she was sitting there talking about their like nature of existence or whatever. Oh, boom, boom. Like, are you fucking kidding me?
What were they supposed to do?
It was
In a park, yeah.
They were just fucking casually shooting her. Get the fuck out of here, bro.
That's what they would do. I don't know what you want.
It's not what they would do. They literally sat in a fucking line together. They're just popping shots off with a revolver. Shut the fuck up.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know what your problem is with that. I think that scene played out.
That scene was mad weird.
It would. Yeah, I mean, it was mad weird because of the fact that there's a woman who can take 1,000,000 bullets walking towards a teenage boy. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
weird.
Because she was a fucking parasite. That wasn't the weird part.
It's gonna be a bit of an awkward situation for sure.
Yeah.
But police shoot people in parks all the time.
And the
All right, David.
Please, Jesus
Just
Christ.
saying, it's completely realistic in what happens in
this
this
is
show.
America.
Well, if parasites were a real thing, you would definitely shoot them until they're down.
Yeah,
For sure. I'm talking about the way that they shot that. Just like, all right, whatever. I'm just.
Yeah.
It is an interesting relationship. I thought about that while watching the show, of the relationship that we have as Americans with, starting off from country westerns that were filmed, in the 40s, 50s, 60s, going on towards, modern action films, which are, shoot 'em up, machine guns, all that stuff, and our relationship with guns in the country with the Second Amendment and all that stuff, versus Japan, where guns are outright banned. And there's scenes in the show where you see the standard cops have their guns like tethered to their holsters and all that stuff, like stuff you would never see in America. And then they have like special permission basically to have these like semi-automatic shotguns for all that stuff. And it's like, gunfire basically is not a thing that you hear in Japan, is the attitude they give you to a degree. So that was very, very interesting to me. The way they treat that, and the way, especially that scene, I'd say scene, it was more like a episode or two, where they raid City Hall and ambush all them
Like
and try to exterminate as many of the parasites as possible. And the fucking mayor ends up being human, which they never really explain that much.
They also didn't explain
some radical that agreed with the parasites, but like they didn't really go beyond that.
They didn't explain the I just had a really horrible dream, but it was part of reality. It wasn't a dream. It was the weirdest shit in the world. But like 3 episodes pass where they're in City Hall and that all that shit happens, and then you get teleported into his bedroom and he wakes up. I did not get that at all. He wakes up and he says he had a terrible dream. He was there. He was in the van.
Mm-hmm.
What are you talking about? And then it literally carried on. Like it was part of reality. I didn't get that at all.
I thought the dream was like the end of it, where like the dude jumps in and the detective's like, "Oh, do you know him?" And then they start like grilling him and stuff. And I think that was just the only part that was the dream, probably.
I thought it was communicated poorly.
I want to say I thought it was like he was supposed to imagine it as a dream, but he ended up realizing it was reality. That might be a different part.
But he didn't.
That might be more towards the end when he's talking about Migi, actually, now that I think about that. But I don't know. I don't remember it well enough to explain that to you, but the narrative made sense to me in and of itself when it was happening. I kind of recall what you were talking about, and it was a little confusing, but I think it made sense in the end. But
it wasn't
I
explained.
don't remember enough to actually debate you on it, so that's all I'm going to say.
It was definitely confusing.
Sure.
Yeah, but yeah, I want to talk about the structure of the show that we brought up earlier, because that might be one of my biggest problems. Is we've been talking about all these scenes and whatever, but it's weird to me that they go on these like arcs of a few episodes that just seem to like happen, and it's just sort of like something random happens, and then an arc starts, and then it ends, and you're like, okay, here's the next thing that happens, and it just seems like a lot of the show is a random thing will happen, or someone will do something unbelievably stupid, and so then like this situation will happen, like his friend, the girl at school, who decides to not tell her brother, the detective, about the parasite, and she's just like, I'm gonna get some acid and confront this dude about
girl
being
with the glasses,
yeah, which is like
paint thinner.
I haven't seen a show with.
I can't believe she didn't die.
Yeah, but like
yeets paint thinner at the motherfucker,
Yeah, she was
and then
kinda pissing me
crawls out on the window. What an escape plan!
And then fucking falls like 4 floors into a tree, and then falls on her back. Like, what?
yeah,
And she's totally fine.
she just got a bunch of other people killed. Yeah, it was like, and that was weird. It was like there's so many dumb decisions made, and
There's
it
a
was
lot of
just like,
stupid characters in this show too.
yeah,
like with the obsessive like stalker of the I can't remember
Kana.
her name. Kana, yeah, dude, she was such a
That
fucking bimbo,
shit
bro.
Was weird.
It was the most. It was so cringe.
Like I get
So
it.
cringe. I hated that character.
I get it to a weird degree where it's like you can have that sort of psychology where you're like so desperate for connection that when you feel you have telepathy to a person that you feel like they're your soulmate. Like that.
But she understood that it wasn't just him. Like there was several times where she communicated the fact that she felt someone that wasn't him.
She didn't. She
It
didn't.
didn't make sense after a while.
That's what got her killed.
She didn't want to
No,
believe.
like, she did that several times. Like she even had a point where she was in an alleyway and she found someone that was a parasite, and then she kept walking the other way. She's like, "Oh, that's not him." Something should click in your brain that says, "Hey, that's not him." You know, I can sense other fucking parasites. There's murders going on around me. She was a bimbo.
The brain.
She doesn't have the wherewithal to
brain
put the 2 and 2 together at all, though.
Yeah, she thought
Before
she
you
could
figure that
differentiate.
whole thing out.
Well, she convinced
Without
herself
knowing
of that. It was the weirdest thing in
I
the
don't
world.
think she ever thought she could differentiate. I think she just
Yeah.
lied to
No,
him
she
to
did.
make him
No,
think
she
it.
literally said that.
That's why she died. She thought
Yeah,
she
that's
could
exactly what
pick
she
him
died.
out. Yeah,
she
she didn't
doing it because she thought she could tell the difference.
She did the completely stupid thing of not taking her phone at the end, and then when he's trying to contact her, she thinks she's finding him, and it's just some parasite feeding, and she
Yeah.
just gets killed. That entire character was pointless and unbelievably
Absolutely
stupid.
ridiculous, pointless.
I was like, I can't believe this is where the story arc went.
And I
She
can't.
just
I can't
died.
believe she was part of the show.
I know, completely predictable, stupid
and she
freaking
was
way.
she was forced. She was literally force fed into the show, like because like the fucking group gang from the school just kept challenging Shinichi. And she's part of that gang or whatever because the ringleader like absolutely fucking adores her.
Yeah.
And she has no fucking like love for him or whatever, but she's like just tagging along, and then she meets him and she's like, "Oh, I can sense you." And then that's where the arc goes. But she had no business loving him at all.
Yeah, that was fun for like a little bit. The whole like gang thing.
It was fun for an episode and a half.
The whole D-Gen thing of like, oh, I'm gonna beat you up, and then he just like sidesteps him and like catches his foot and like throws him on the ground like that. It was fun for like a little bit, and then they extended it a little bit too far, and then it turned into exactly what we're talking about with Kana being like with tying his like she pulls out his hair and like ties it around her finger and like
oh my god,
as she lay dying, the hair falls from her finger onto the ground, and it's very symbolic and emotional, but it's not. It's just
the
like,
amount of times that they go back to that fucking lot in the back was ridiculous. They went back like 4 times.
She like
and I was
tries
like,
she
are you
tries
kidding
his
me?
last name on by like half drawing it in graffiti, and it's I don't know. It felt so soap opera. It was I don't know.
She existed just like only to die and make him like feel a certain type of way and like think about his emotions basically, and that was like basically every other like high schooler in the freaking show just existed to be in danger or to die, and they were just just completely bland, awful characters.
She's a very one-dimensional character, and then same thing with Murano.
Murano was kind of 2D too as well.
She's just the love interest. She
really
has no
kind of
effect.
fuck with her at
she
all.
has no effect in the story aside from being a emotional tie.
Are you Izumi-kun?
Yeah,
Shut the fuck up.
It's like, why are you got the stuff that is so much more interesting and I actually like to watch with, the Parasyte conflict and all they're doing this philosophical stuff. And then all this has happened, and then in the middle of the show they go back to high school and have like an entire episode where they're in high school, and it's like, you do not do this well. Don't go back. Like, this is not your forte. This is not your lane. Like, please get away from it. I mean, I was glad they like got together at the end and they worked stuff out, but
yeah.
I don't know.
I will say, like you guys said, the Kana thing is I never really cared for her character. I was screaming at the TV when she was about to die that she is freaking dead, and she did die. I think the only value that comes out of it is the relationship with Shinichi. Like, he doesn't really care for her from jump. She just kind of pursues him, but it just goes back to show it ties into the whole humanity thing, because this is where Shinichi progressively loses his feelings and sentimental aspect to his character, and then I think this is where he was healed by Migi, right? So he wasn't really feeling nothing, and then that at the after she died and they were at his funeral, the degenerate kid is like, you can't even cry for her or something like that, and he's like I can't. You're absolutely right. Frick off. And
frick off.
Yeah, I did like that scene. Yeah, doesn't he say like, are you human or something, or like, you're not human? He's like, you're right, I'm not, or something like that.
And so I feel like those moments in the beginning is not really all that great. It's kind of unnecessary, but it builds up to leading ultimately Shinichi and his development, which I'm there for. But so I'm mixed on it. Definitely, I definitely feel what you guys are saying.
Yeah, I just wish they could have done it in a more cohesive, trimmed down, interesting way where you didn't have to have all this.
But you were actually allowed to give a shit about the accessory characters, like.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did anyone have an issue with how quickly the characters were able to pick up on the fact that he was changing? Like, he didn't really do a whole lot to like have a red flag that said, "Hey, I'm changing as a human being fundamentally," and they just kept picking up on it. Every other scene, like, "Oh, Shinichi, you're just changing." Like, he would just say like one sentence, and they would be like, they would pick up on it. Like, they were the most empathetic like characters of all time. Like, they just knew.
I definitely thought about that. It
bothered me the whole show.
His character change happens in like the first like 6 episodes or something like that, where he's like mad nerdy, super shooken, like
he's like that for an episode and a half, if
doing that, and then all of a sudden he's like battle hardened.
He's a wooden plank. Yeah, a wooden plank.
He loses his glasses, which is obviously the most massive character development a character can ever have is sight.
That is true.
But jokes aside, like, I think to a degree, like, we're all bubbly and like normal people to a degree, and we have this, that, and the other thing. If I showed up to the podcast and I was like, yeah, it's okay, like, like all this stuff, you'd be like, yo, are you good? Like, you doing okay?
Yeah.
Like, are you really like?
Yeah, but I wouldn't assume that you're not like the same person.
Let me finish. That's what I was gonna say. That's what I was gonna say. Is like, it's weird to say like, are you really Cameron? Like that's that's a jump. That's a jump. I think it might have a little bit. I might be overgeneralizing. I'm probably overgeneralizing, but I think it has something to do with a lot of bit of East Asian superstition about demons, spirits, that kind of thing, and that happens a lot of times in Western cultures of like possession and stuff like that. I mean, we have that, Catholic Church, Christianity, all that stuff of like demon possession and all that sort of stuff is those superstitions exist to a high degree, maybe not as much in modernity, but those definitely still exist. But like, to say like off of 5 sentences, are you really you? Like, is a bit egregious.
A sentence and a half, and they were just like, "Oh, you're not human."
I thought it's a bit excessive. Yeah.
It made sense that they picked up on the change because I could pick up on it pretty easy, but then
For sure.
not
But
saying
we
that,
knew
like,
we
are
knew
you
he wasn't human though, so we had an advantage that they didn't
Oh
have.
yeah,
It is-
but he does look very different, and he's not like shook by anything. So I
it
get
made-
that.
I think there are valid times, like when you talked about him throwing the dog away. At that point, I'd be
That's
like,
totally
questioning, like,
that's
Like,
absolutely 100% with you on that.
Yeah.
But when he
Yeah.
just says like one sentence
No,
and
yeah.
he says it in a deadpan way, like, come on, man. He's still. You can't just like you can't jump to the fact that he's not human. That's ridiculous.
yeah, I guess so. Yeah,
Feels
I
a
don't know.
bit too easy of a jump. But yeah. Honestly, I want to talk about the good parts of the show.
Mhm.
The best part of the show for me, facetiously, is I'm gonna say episode 3, I think, when my man has just acquired Migi.
I know what you're about to
and
say.
or episode 2 actually. Just after he made me say Kuroko no Basket who, because he absolutely balls the frick up in basketball, makes his classmates look like fools. But then he walks to the bathroom, and Migi, out of natural curiosity, says, "I would like to make this sexual organ erect."
Yeah.
And it just starts jerking him off in the bathroom on episode 2.
Oh god.
I was like,
nearly as bad as
I was
the
like,
masturbation
what am I
scenes on
watching?
Rent a Girlfriend.
That was.
oh, it's definitely not close to Rent a Girlfriend. Rent a Girlfriend spent a good minute and a half at a time on it. But I was cackling, honestly. I was like, yo, it's like the Parasyte is dead ass just gonna jerk him off for science. It's just like, this is what this man is doing.
For science.
It's
No,
shit
but
was
could you
dumb
imagine-
funny.
Could you imagine your right hand literally having a mind of its own, being like, "Oh, what's this?"
Time
You
to
know?
jerk you off. Yeah, bro. Like, that shit was so fucking funny to me.
When you're in the
The show was actually very humorous for the first like 6 or 7 episodes, and then it kind of took itself a little bit seriously. But
It had to, yeah.
it didn't have to, but it was definitely.
I mean, with that amount of blood.
I mean, yeah,
I don't
they
think the
coulda-
blood determines whether or not it gets taken seriously or not.
I'm speaking metaphorically, but
Yeah, I think Migi was like they would have pretty funny. So I guess it was less later on, but I thought he was like the funniest aspect.
Yeah,
sure,
no, Migi
definitely.
is my favorite part of the show.
Yeah, I get that. Him.
Go
Yeah,
ahead, David.
go
Sorry.
ahead.
Go ahead. No, yeah.
I was gonna say him,
What were you saying?
Shinichi, and Ryoku Tamura were my 3 characters that I actually cared about, and
That's
I
all
liked a
that you
lot.
really should care
You didn't
about.
like,
Honestly, like they
you
didn't
didn't-
really give you a whole lot.
You didn't
Yeah.
massively value the other guy that was like Shinichi and Joe.
The dude with his mouth.
He was fine.
The
He was
homie,
pretty wholesome.
The
but
homie Joe on his fucking neck.
It's awesome, Joe.
he didn't
yeah.
do anything though.
Yo, he
Nah, he
was
did
there.
absolutely
He was
nothing.
on call, man.
He was on the side.
It was an interesting thing because I thought when his mother gets killed and he has that scene where he leaves town, he's like, "I'll be back" or whatever at some point. I thought that was going to be the rest of the show. I thought it was going to be a revenge, like a gritty alien revenge freaking drama. But he finds the dude and then freaking Joe just kills him like right there, and I was like, "Oh, all right." We're just and that's it. Just kept changing directions, and I was surprised, but.
That was definitely a cool moment where he was like, "I know that's not your mother anymore, but I didn't feel like you were the one. You should be the one to finish it off."
Yeah.
And they do another bit of like science, like quote unquote science of the Parasyte's building, where he like rearranged the organs so they couldn't pierce the heart. And that was actually kind of a funny moment as well, where he was like, where the Parasyte that he killed was laying dying on the ground, and he was like, "Yeah, you always aim for the heart, you prick." Like,
Yeah.
he just said it outright. Where he was
Definitely
like,
didn't. They weren't afraid to curse. They dropped shit a couple
I like
times,
that.
which I thought was pretty humorous.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
was mad funny when Netflix would flash TVMA for smoking and language when literally every episode is a fucking
It's
bloodbath.
gore. It's all gore.
Every episode is it like
Jeez.
like
a good point.
several.
I swear they don't change their preferences on the rating. They just give it
Yeah.
several nicotine, and it's
several
like all sex. There's no cigars at all. There's no cigarettes. It's just all sex.
They show you several like 15-year-olds slaughtered in a school hallway, and they're like language and
Yeah.
smoking. By the way,
Language.
Yeah.
Parental
discretion is advised.
but yeah,
Yeah.
um,
For for sure.
You remember when they used to say parental discretion is advised, like before
they still
TV
do.
shows?
They still do.
That's funny, dog.
Yeah.
No one
but,
gives a fuck.
But for actual
These fucking 8-year-olds are watching much worse than what you see on TV.
Jesus, I fear to have children in 10 years. It's going to be very interesting.
True.
I fear to have a
of-
bladder that can't hold 2 liters of vodka, whatever the fuck I'm drinking. I'm gonna fucking go pee real quick. Sorry.
I guess I will too.
Vodka.
Cameron wanted to talk about some of his greater points.
Yes, we are back from the
Almost
initiated
stood up and did
bathroom
something.
break. We have done all these things. I definitely think that these are points that I have thought of that are definitely not unique thoughts. So I believe that it'll start a fair amount of conversation. So the standout point for I think the entire show for me was essentially the development of this dynamic of the fact that the relationship between human and parasite, where it was emotion and empathy on the human side and cold reason and logic on the parasitic side, and they both start to corrupt each other, and they do that in a very like scientific way, as it were, where like he has to heal his heart, so like 30% or however much goes through his body and like interacts with him, and then that gives him increased physical abilities, which is another really cool element of the show, which we can talk about separately. But I loved the continuing dynamic between Migi talking and acting and doing all this stuff that was cold reason and logic that slowly edge toward the empathetic side, going right on to the point where they're fighting Goto and they separate from his body and they realize the fight is lost, and Migi says, "Run, not both of us have to die." And so that's like a massive progression where like he's like, I'm only protecting myself, all the way up to run, I will die so you can live, is like they're direct opposites. So
Yeah.
I don't know what you guys feel about that.
Yeah, I thought that was definitely dope. It was a moment I think you gotta mention if you're talking about, the whole progression, as you're saying. It's interesting how they do character progression. I don't know. It's like these just different things will happen, and then you'll see them talking about it and thinking about it, and they don't. I guess maybe for the other characters they do, but for Migi, I never felt like there was like these moments where it's like, oh, I'm realizing this, and now I have a heart, which I kind of liked. He just sort of subtly just learns things and grows more human, I guess, as it goes on, and it leads to him like sacrificing himself.
We
which is pretty
observe basically
dope.
all of it through Shinichi's perspective, which I think works for the narrative structure of the show. Yeah,
for sure. Yeah,
where we understand it only as fast and as completely as he does.
yeah. Yeah, and on the flip side, I think I like Shinichi turning more parasitic and less human, and then him finally getting like snapped out of that basically. Was also pretty great.
With that scene of them airing out the park, as Trevor put it.
Right. Yeah.
Literally.
It was kind of interesting to think that he developed emotions just through interactions with Shinichi. Like, there's no reason for him to not continue to be the way that he is if it weren't for the potential that parasites have to actually develop that
And it's
emotional intelligence.
That's the emotional intelligence thing is a very interesting thing with the show, is especially with Ryoko Tomura, where she starts laughing and like talks about, I tried to laugh in the mirror as a human would, and it felt good, or whatever she says about it. And so the show makes subtly at first, but then like more and more obviously, the fact that when the parasite and the human exist for a certain amount of time, then they tend to corrupt each other, for lack of a better term. I mean, corrupt, I think, is the word that the show would use. Maybe affect or influence is the more accurate, like, objective word.
Yeah, because Ryoko Tamura is interesting because she's not even sharing a body with a human, really. I mean, she
Yeah.
has a human body underneath the brain, but she's just like a parasite on her own who happens to be curious about their nature and their origin, so she just delves into it. And
Mhm.
I think she's definitely I don't know, she's very interesting, obviously. I think that scene at the park is one of my favorites in the whole show where she gets aired out and murked at the same time.
Ventilated.
Yeah,
Tear
yeah,
it out.
yeah. That's it's super interesting that a completely foreign species, like on its own, developed human emotions and like attachment to its child, who's just a human, who's a different species. But like, the fact that she like ends up being a real mother to it was quite powerful for me, and it was definitely like I didn't like how they kept just like throwing in these different storylines, but that like wrapped around from the beginning, and I was like, oh, they really developed this character and then had a full
Mhm.
payoff, and so that added a lot to the show for sure, and it definitely makes you think.
Mhm.
Yeah,
For sure. I enjoy when shows don't feel the need to hold back, and I mean they're not afraid to kill anybody. It seems like
yeah,
so.
yeah,
Yeah, she was a likable character, and then they just yeah, the whole transitioning to human life is what she tried to do because she was eating. She even tried eating human food to nourish her, and she found out that it could nourish her, but not as well. But
hmm
just that assimilation is brought a unique perspective because it shows that although they're a species, they're not all the same because they do have a higher intelligence. They're not all going to be driven by solely the basic biological necessities.
right,
That
right, and she had
that
yeah,
that was a cool bit of the show to me, where the idea is that humans work together based off of our, you know, um, evolutionary development to rely on each other. Where like we have developed throughout millions of years of time to work with each other, and that's the best way for us to survive. That's how we know how to survive because that's how it is, and so we have a natural tendency to do that. And so beyond that, you have the parasites, where you have Migi as your first um, example, where he's like, I preserve my existence and my existence only. Shinichi, you are secondary to me, but basically equal only because I'm attached to you. That's it. Like, just because, like, I will die if you die, that's the only reason I'm protecting you. So that's interesting to me because the parasites begin working together. And so that's interesting because it's a sheer logic thing. They have no feeling for each other whatsoever. There's no sort of camaraderie, there's no sort of like sense of goal or any sort of emotion towards each other. It's just like we will live because we work together very logically. It's not because we feel that we should or we have any sort of anger, love, anything like that tied to it. It is because we have the best chance of surviving if we work in force.
yeah,
And I think the show does a very good job of communicating that fact of like working together as humans versus working together as the logical excruciative parasites.
Mhm.
So that was a cool dynamic to me.
yeah, for sure, yeah, yeah, definitely. It's I don't know. Why do you guys think I was thinking about the parasites working together and how you think the mayor or whatever is a parasite the whole time and then he turns out to be human. Do you think they explained that well enough, or like why do you think he worked with them and helped them
Mm.
out?
I'm not sure if I'm kind of content with where they left it because I don't really think if they explained it, it would do anything to really benefit the story that much.
Yeah.
I could see it as he came into working with them by chance and not wanting to die, and then realizing that as a somewhat powerful figure in the human society, it would benefit the parasites to work with him as it benefits him as well.
I saw it as like, I saw it a little differently, where he's like giving that speech before he dies, where he's like, humans are doing this and they're ruining the world and all that kind of stuff. And so maybe he was like, it shows you that humans, just based on their beliefs, can like, I don't know, just be like exactly like the parasites, basically, or like team up with them, or like he had more in common with the parasites and how they view humanity than other humans did, basically. Like he saw humans as like a threat to the earth and a parasite or whatever. Even though he was one.
That's basically everything I have to say about it. Is like, it's that, the who should be your ally ends up agreeing with the enemy, as it were.
Yeah.
So it's like he just decides, or not decides, but feels that way, that, I guess I'll start from the beginning, in the fact that, like, that series of episodes, the raid on the council, annoyed me more than than anything else in the show. I wasn't generally annoyed by the show, but I started to get annoyed with that series of episodes because of the fact that, especially with Goto and especially with the mayor, they were sweeping clear, just fucking eviscerating everything they saw. And then as soon as it was a quote-unquote important character, they were like, let's see what he has to say. Where he's just like on the, like, literally on the fucking pundit, like on the mayoral stand, giving a fucking whole ass speech for all of like a minute, 2 minutes, whatever. They let him say everything he has to say, and then they open fire. And like Goto, they're like, they meet Goto in the hall, and Goto is like, let's go over here, there's more space. And they're just like, okay. It's like, what do you fucking mean? Like, you just lit up a dude that was definitely human, like all of like 15 seconds ago. Like, like literally 50 feet behind you is a dude that was definitely human that you just eviscerated. And this guy is like the most evil motherfucker you've seen in your entire life, and you know it in your soul. And you were like, let's go to a different location. He seems nice. It's like, I was a little annoyed. I don't want to hold it against them too much, because, like, a lot of shows, a lot of anime does that to a degree of exposition, and to have the story play out the way they want it to. But I feel like it could have been done more suave, as it were, where it was like, it's too obvious. It's too obvious that he's just gonna like play them. Where like you have these motherfuckers walking in with semi-automatic shotguns with however many round clips, which are just like irregular to Japan, and you're gonna say, this guy talks a bit, let's hear him out. It just made no fucking sense.
I feel you on that. Yeah, that was weird, for sure.
Definitely I agree.
Yeah, but what do you guys think about the conclusion of the show and the final message that they sort of leave you with and everything? I thought that was very interesting.
I did think it was interesting. At first I wasn't down with the whole way Migi went out, just cause it felt like, bro, you could totally reattach yourself. But I get it's part of his development.
Yeah. And
then he kind of appears. He's appearing to Shinichi in his dream
Alex,
world.
Can you hold that thought, Alex?
Mm-hmm. I'm holding it.
All four of us. Did we believe Migi was fully gone in that fight against Goto?
No.
I half believed it.
I thought there was no chance based on the narrative of the show. Okay, all right, Alex, continue.
Yeah. I mean, you have Migi appearing to him in his dreamscape.
As a much smaller skeleton.
Right. Yeah. You do know that Migi is, of course,
within him
still, not a lot.
Yeah.
And then he sort of regenerates
Yeah, like
Which is-
reattaches.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, say I want you to. It's your anime. Say your full piece about the ending, because
What you got thoughts?
You got the. I know.
No,
wanna
I
hear
want
your
you. I
thoughts,
want
man.
you to pop off if you had popping off to do, because the ending was cool to me. So,
All right, tell me. Oh, yeah, tell me why it was cool to you, please.
um, the first and foremost was I didn't expect it. I- that can be a good thing and a bad thing. I really didn't expect the serial killer to be like the crux of the finale at all.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
So that was interesting, and in terms of being unexpected, I think it was valuable. In and of itself, it was weird, because of the fact that it has nothing to do with the overarching thing with the parasites. It just has to do with Migi still being there, even though we're probably never going to get a Parasite season 2. No, it's not that I want a Parasite season 2. I think I'm good with how it ended. I think it would be a force if they did it, but if they do, then blessings to them. But all that being said, it was still cool because the whole dormant thing, the whole we're gonna coexist. I'll go to sleep, and then you end up with this ridiculous scenario that you shouldn't have to ever deal with, where a serial killer has your girl at knife point on a roof. And there's no way out, and then you got your best bud, the parasite in your arm, that ends up saving the day, as it were, without actually showing himself. And that's a direct contrast to I think the mid-season finale roundabout, where Shinichi is about to tell Murano about everything, and as she has her back turned, you see this frame where Migi has like every knife he can bring out bared against her, like very, very fucking ready to just destroy her at a moment's notice if Shinichi like missteps. And as soon as she turns around, he puts it away. And so it's the exact opposite of that, where Migi ends up saving the girl as she falls off the roof. And so I think a lot of the philosophy beforehand was a bit forced about the whole humanity is killing the planet. They didn't do a really good job, I think, of layering that in. I think it kind of came out of left field. Which we can talk. That's a whole separate conversation. Let's go back to that for sure. But I think all in all, the finale, the show in and of itself left me a bit dissatisfied, but the finale itself, I think, was solid. And the guy gets the girl, the parasite is living in coexistence, and there's no immediate threat. That being said, the dissatisfaction comes from, okay, there's a lot we don't know. A lot hasn't been explained, and as David was humming at, go ahead.
What? Well, yeah, I just thought it was an interesting ending because when the serial killer showed up, I was like, oh boy, here we go. She's gonna freaking die at the last second. It's gonna be like, yeah, sucker, life sucks, deal with it. And I'm just gonna be like, all right, thanks. But it was weird that it happened, kind of, but I feel like they used it to tie up the themes and like, because he gets all philosophical and he's like thinking about all this stuff and all this like, man, humans do this and parasites do that, and I guess we're sort of the same, and it's like, and he's like believing in altruism, I think. But then it's interesting how like the final thing of the show is like, he beats up the serial killer and then catches her and he's holding her, and it's like zooms out and it's just like, humans find something to hold on to until we die, I think is like the last line. Which was a very interesting message that I think is pretty unique, and I think plays out like throughout the show, I guess. Or it's an interesting final conclusion because you see it's almost like it's more simple than you would think, but it says a lot. So I don't know. Yeah.
Right. I feel that way a lot about the lines of the show, where
Hmm.
surface level simplicity, but they're
Yeah.
sort of one off hitting you, and if you really ponder it, it's definitely food for thought.
Yeah. For sure.
They do the same thing here, like you said. The serial killer coming out is a little bit weird,
Hmm.
but everything kind of ties itself together as a finale.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I'm definitely content with it. Some parts, like Cameron's saying, is somewhat dissatisfying. In other areas, I'm fulfilled.
Hmm. True.
It kind of goes for the show as a whole, I would say.
Yeah. Yeah. Is that leading into our final thoughts, basically?
I think
Yeah.
so. Trev,
Yeah.
did you have anything to say about anything that's been said in the last
Nothing
10 minutes?
profound, no.
Mhm.
No, y'all killed it. So
You don't have to be profound. Agree, disagree.
Anything Trevor does is profound.
That's
Shut the
Dang.
fuck
That's
up.
very fair. That's very fair. Agree, disagree
Um,
on any of that, I'd say.
Did y'all really think she was dying though?
No.
I did. Yeah. I thought.
Well,
No, there's no way. There's no way they're ending.
I
that.
thought it
How
was
much on a low
possible.
note?
Actually, it did kind of be like, I don't know what's gonna happen exactly. Yeah.
Because I've seen plenty of shows where it's like, you know, it's very dark and edgy, and it's like everything's happy, and then the last episode is just they like kill the person to frick with you. So
Yeah.
I thought that was gonna happen.
Yeah,
But
I
didn't-
had no
yeah.
idea. I didn't think it was gonna happen at all. But
in my
Yeah.
head there was a chance where I was like, I'm gonna fucking like deck this show if she dies.
Yeah, yeah,
Where like it shouldn't happen, but it could. Like they made me believe that it could, which
Yeah.
like makes the show gain points, basically, in my opinion. Where it's just like, you know, I'd
was
be pissed
convincing.
if they did, but I'm
Glad they
glad
didn't.
that they made me think it's possible.
yeah,
Yeah, I feel it.
yeah. For sure, that's how I felt.
I'm all about unpredictability.
Yeah, yeah. It's certainly unpredictable.
Yeah,
So,
especially in a lot of shows, you can't help but identify patterns
yeah,
that
yeah.
make it obvious.
Yeah, it's a pretty great achievement to be unpredictable and also have a story that makes sense, and you know everything gets paid off, but you just don't see it coming. So yeah, yeah. On that note, I think this show sort of did that. I think my big flaws were the side characters, all the high school drama stuff, the jumping around storyline where it seemed like stuff would just happen for almost no reason, and then it just kind of made it have less impact, or me questioning what the point of certain things was. Just dumb decisions characters made, and I kind of expected a little more out of the fights and animation from Madhouse because they're one of my favorite studios. I thought it would be popping the frick off, but it was just decent to me. You know, it was some pretty cool looking stuff, but that was about it.
I'm waiting on that.
I thought the way Migi moved was really, you know, cool and well done, but that was about it.
I do like when they unsheath his blades for
Yeah.
hands, as it were. They
Right,
always just
yeah.
whip them out like really, really smoothly. But
For sure. Yeah, so yeah, but loved the dynamic. I liked the three characters I already mentioned, and it's, you know, it gets a lot of points for being unique and at least, you know, asking you some questions, you know, even if it gives some answers and doesn't give others. So I would give it a 7 overall. I think it had missed potential, but it definitely succeeded in like the main parts it probably wanted to, I guess. Yeah.
Dope.
All right, I'll roll next, given the dead silence. Yeah, I'm gonna agree with David on a lot of what he said. I think the music is great for a lot of combat, all that stuff. I think we didn't mention that much during the episode outside of when we talked about the intros. The music is very solid. I think it fits the themes well and all that. I like a good gory anime. I like a anime that isn't afraid of blood, regardless of the fact that Netflix is gonna misrepresent it in terms of their MA rating.
that doesn't bother the show, though.
Yeah, exactly. It's a joke. But it's a knife. So
Dang.
Oh my god!
It wasn't
I can't fucking believe you just said that.
that. We're a lot of knives.
Yeah. So I liked the combat to a high degree, honestly. I think they did a fair amount with what they had. The you know the environment they established, with what the abilities were and what they can and cannot do. I think they did a fair amount with, and I was happy with. Obviously wasn't blown away, I mean, we have a high bar to compare that against with, a lot of the superhero and different shonen kind of things we talk about. But so it's hard to hit that bar with what they set themselves up with. But I think with what they set themselves up with was pretty good with what they achieved. And they didn't cop out like I thought they would with the whole they're too fast. They actually made a system out of it. And there was a lot of strategy to the combat as well, as opposed to bigger motherfucker wins. So that was valuable to me as well. I like the central concept a lot of, like I said earlier, empathy versus cold logic. That was very interesting to me, especially as a anthro guy. My humans are my science, so everything pertaining to that is very interesting to me. I'll never stop loving that. So, all in all, I guess that's about all I have to say. I've said quite a bit during the episode. I'll call it a 7.5. I'll round up to an 8 on my anime list probably. It was a good show. I enjoyed watching it the entire time. I was never like, this is bullshit. I was never like, this is like dumb. I did a fair amount of like, this aspect or another was mediocre or less or not great to me during this episode, but all in all, I enjoyed the show a lot, honestly. It was very enjoyable. It was interesting. It was cool. It was original to a fair degree. So yeah. I definitely recommend it to people. So 7.5, 8 if I have to round up. So yeah, that's all I got.
Dope. Trevor, what do you want to say about it, my guy?
I'm gonna echo a lot of David's points. I do want to stress how I do enjoy the progressive dubstep that they have on the show, which I thought was pretty rad.
Agreed.
Yeah.
It was just the every time the beat dropped, I was like, oh, this is pretty fucking hard. But then it was followed by the tentacle monster animations that they had. I thought the fighting animations fell really flat for me. Like I said, the show didn't really have a whole lot of personality for me. I'm not really going to carry it too much. I'm not going to think about the show like ever after we're done talking about this, which kind of sucks. That's kind of what I do with a lot of shows. I try and find a nice link to keep with me, and I'm probably not going to carry this show with me and mentally. I didn't really give a shit about the most of the characters, which really sucked. Like I went into this thinking it was going to be really cool, and it kind of fell flat in a lot of areas for me, but I still enjoyed it. I definitely enjoyed it as I was watching it. Like Cameron was saying, none of it really felt like it was bullshit. It just kind of underscored my expectations. So, yeah, I'm gonna give it a 6. I think I was leaning more towards a 7, and then as I kept thinking about it, I was more and more critical about it in hindsight, and I feel more negatively about it after I watched it, if that makes sense. So,
okay,
I'm gonna roll with a 6.
That makes sense.
Well, yeah, pretty much. You guys said this, the music, the soundtrack, it goes in. I was questioning who was in the studio, It's crazy every time I hear it, man.
Can I have your number?
Trevor said, goes hard. There's like a little, I don't know, would you say trappy? There's like a trappy snare that they use, which I'm like, oh, I see what they're going.
This was before like the trap snare was really a thing.
Yeah,
so, a little, Yeah.
So music is life for me, so I enjoy the music quite a bit. It does a lot. Sure. Like I mentioned earlier, I particularly enjoy the moments when it expands upon Shinichi and Migi's relationship, and watching that progress is really fun for me. I think there's definitely a lot of moments in the show where if you think about it too much, you can see a lot of holes in a lot of areas. It doesn't make sense, and that's where it kind of brings it down for me. But I like a lot of the philosophical elements that they try to incorporate it, and when because it made me think. It definitely gave me shower thoughts, if you will. And so I really like that part of it.
Mhm.
I think I would give it an 8.5, but if I had to round down, I would give it an 8. But
Okay.
nice.
Nice.
About that point for me is where I stand.
That's dope. Yeah. Yeah, it was cool to bring to us. I mean, it's definitely
For sure.
a unique show. Yeah.
I
Definitely glad we watched it.
I definitely enjoyed it. I think I didn't say, but I think they in the last couple episodes like really, really pushed the philosophy, which brought it down a little bit for me.
Dang, that brought it up for me. Yeah, that's interesting.
It was interesting. Yeah, it was. I don't know. It depends on how you feel about it to begin with, but it felt like they were trying to sneak it in more than it was a natural thing to in and of itself. So it brought me down a little bit, but I mean, I'm still giving it an 8 rounding up. So
Yeah. Well, this was cool. It's cool when someone brings a show the rest of us haven't seen, for sure. Have to do more stuff like this in the future. But our next one will be not that. It'll be a follow-up on one of our previous episodes, which, well, that one was someone bringing
Episode
a show that
37?
we hadn't seen. Yes,
I
it
wanna
will
say.
we'll be covering Cells at Work Season 2 and Code Black, which are both out now already.
simultaneously.
So, yeah.
Pending.
Should be, yeah.
Pending.
Should be a fun one. Yeah, I don't know. Interesting to see what's
You
going
may
on.
see 2 episodes, you may see 1. Who knows
Yeah,
how
we'll
the show
see.
will go.
Could be.
We'll see. Yeah, we shall see.
Either way, look forward to that in the next 2 weeks.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. So, thanks everybody for listening and watching and sticking around and staying tuned. We hope you're pondering the nature of humanity out there, and
Absolutely. Always.
yeah, for sure. So I'm gonna wave with my Migi and say it's been real, everybody. Bye. Hey.
That is funny. If you're watching or listening to this as it's coming out, and you haven't seen Cells at Work Season 1, I would definitely recommend and watch Season 2 with us as well. We're gonna be talking about it, Code Black. I'm interested to see how they execute on a second season, a follow-up. Will they continue with the patterns that they brought in Season 1, or will they go in a new direction? I'm very curious to find out. So you can look forward to that in the next Anime Box. And it has been a lovely time. I've been chilling with my friends, my family. And with that, I will say, I love you all.
Dope.
That is absolutely right, ladies and gentlemen. If you want to find us on social media, if you want to come tell us we're the worst people on earth or that we're the best people on earth, come talk shit. Come chat shit, get banged. If you want to, give us compliments, all that good stuff.
What?
That is
I don't know
Yeah,
what.
dang.
What is that?
You never heard that?
No.
You never heard
Complain
of
Never in my life.
You never heard of the all-time leading consecutive goal scorer of the Premier
Oh, you
League
lost
named
me.
Jamie Vardy?
No, certainly have not.
Chat shit, get banged.
Okay.
Jesus fucking
I'm
Christ.
assuming it means
Please
something
don't ever,
different in
yeah,
that
don't
context.
ever say that again.
It is the extremely English version of talk shit, get hit.
Oh wow. Get banged.
Get
Interesting.
banged.
Chat shit, get banged is the
Get banged over
the
TT.
UK version of
God dang.
talk shit, get hit. So yeah. Anywho, I'm glad you had a very ridiculous reaction to that because that's exactly what I hoped for. If you want to tell us your reaction to that or anything like that, go and find us on @UnboxingLifePod on Instagram and Twitter, and find us on r/UnboxingLifePodcast on Reddit. We are maybe 10 episodes behind on Reddit right now. I don't know who's responsible for that.
Oh no.
We'll find out soon. But you will see all that good stuff. Come chat shit with us. Maybe don't get banged because we love you.
And you might be underage, so.
And we're not gonna. Anyway.
You might not want to.
Yeah.
That too. Consent is absolutely 100% the wave, my guy.
Most important thing. Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Bang responsibly. And
consent is the way. It is the way.
That is true.
As the Mandalorian would say. So, come find us on any of those platforms. We are waiting for you. We will love to hear from you. Anything you say to us, we will value massively. As we said earlier, reviews on Apple Podcasts, we value massively. Same thing with ratings on YouTube and comments and all that stuff. Just talk to us. We're lonely. So, there's that. With all that being said, please take care of yourselves, be safe, and be kind to everyone you meet.
I was just cheese like a motherfucker.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm just imagining me like living my life, and I'm just like, yeah, I'm sitting in front of my computer all day. I'm just waiting for somebody to hit me up that listen to my podcast. I'm just waiting.
That's me. Dude. That's me. I'm waiting.
Sitting here. That is true. That's what we do. When we stop recording, we just sit here and wait for
we just sit here
and comments.
We actually all have hemorrhoids.
None of us have jobs.
Or lives or anything.
None of us has showered in the last 4 days.
Nope. 4 days. Wow, that's a record.
That's a quick record for sure.
Save us from our loneliness and just hit us up on socials or
our
whatever.
Degeneracy.
Yeah.
JFC.
Oh god. No, but thank you, Alex, for stepping out there and recommending this show. I definitely enjoyed it, even though I gave it like one of the lower scores that I've given on this show, but I still actually enjoyed it more than the score suggests. So I just wanted to thank you for extending your personality and giving us a show to watch. So
thank you.
Hopefully we can watch another show soon where we haven't seen any of it really, besides like maybe one of us or something like that, or something entirely new, because it always brings a fresh aspect to the anime boxes. But connect with us and talk with us and be excellent to each other, and shit, bro. We'll catch you next time, man. If you guys are watching live, try and catch up with some cells at work. If not, we're gonna spoil it for you. So we love you all. We'll catch y'all right hands later. Peace out, baby.